it's got to clearly depend on how bad the shot
Yeah.
is, though. Because if you get fouled and knocked unconscious and then you come back,
You're just going to get knocked out.
yeah.
If you get knocked out, that's why boxing, right?
And that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms.
Big part of it is speed.
Joe Rogan reacted to Jake Paul being hospitalized after the Anthony Joshua knockout while discussing the moment with Daniel Cormier. Rogan pointed out how powerful the punch looked and emphasized that boxing is an extremely dangerous sport. He explained that when fighters are hit cleanly at that level, the consequences can be serious and long-lasting. Rogan stressed that outcomes are never fully predictable and that such impacts can leave permanent damage that stays with fighters for life. Sports doctor Brian Sutterer broke down the aftermath of the knockout in a calm and medical-focused way. He explained that the outcome of the fight was largely what many expected.
Jake told Ariel Helwani that he was worried that he had broke his jaw. He said multiple times he was concerned that he had a fractured jaw. And certainly looking at this knockout punch that Anthony Joshua delivers, it is absolutely a possibility that Jake does in fact have a jaw fracture. I'd honestly be more concerned about a concussion. In fact, with most jaw fractures, the more important thing initially is to look for other injuries to the head, to the neck, to the airway. The jaw fracture potentially being there or not is going to be lower on the list often than whether there's damage to the airway, damage to the head. And so very possible to have a concussion or some residual symptoms from this, as Jake Paul's head is relatively still here. We see AJ comes in with that right, and that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms. But you can see where the punch comes in, landing square on that left side of Paul's face. Jake's reaction was pretty telling too. Right away after it, we could see him going down on the canvas here and being very shocked. It doesn't look like there's any obvious deformity to the jaw. We won't necessarily always see a deformity to the jaw, but you could tell he clearly had realized that something serious had happened there and feeling the full power of AJ's right. And finally, on this last view, we can see a little bit better the exact location where the punch comes in. We'll talk about our jaw anatomy, the different areas of the bones, but your temporomandibular joint, where your jaw articulates with the rest of your skull, is sitting right around in this area, and the jaw is roughly coming down in this orientation. And so where that punch comes in from Joshua is a little bit more kind of flush right in the center of the mandible, but also up close.
But the real concern came after Jake Paul admitted he feared his jaw was broken. According to Sutterer, a fractured jaw was absolutely possible based on the way Anthony Joshua's right hand landed cleanly on the left side of Jake's face. However, he stressed that a concussion would actually be the bigger concern. He explained that jaw fractures often take a back seat initially to more serious risks like head, neck, or airway injuries. The sudden and violent rotation of Jake's head from the punch likely sent a strong rotational force through the brain and brainstem, increasing the risk of concussion. While Jake was not completely knocked out, Sutterer noted that delayed symptoms were still possible. Jake's immediate shock and reaction showed he knew something serious had happened. Joe Rogan had already predicted before the fight that it would not end well for Jake Paul.
Rogan experience.
What do you think about Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua?
Boy. Well, realistically, it's one of the craziest propositions of all time. You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division. Maybe we should watch the Francis Ngannou fight so you could see. Let's watch that real quick, just so you can see what Anthony Joshua is capable if he's fighting someone that's not in his league. Okay, look, Usyk beat him, and he beat him twice, and Andy Ruiz caught him in the first fight. And
he explained that Jake was used to facing older or retired opponents, but this time he was stepping in with one of the best heavyweights in the world. Rogan warned that the level difference would be dangerous and unforgiving. The aftermath of Jake Paul stepping into the ring with Anthony Joshua sparked a wave of reactions across the boxing world. While some fans rushed to praise Jake for his courage and willingness to face a dangerous opponent, many respected voices within boxing pushed back hard against that narrative. Luke Thomas was one of the strongest voices pushing against the praise Jake Paul received. He made it clear that the reaction surrounding the fight felt wildly exaggerated. According to Thomas, people were applauding Jake simply for surviving rather than actually competing.
This Anthony Joshua fight, I think I would say that my conclusions now still match most of what I said when I was watching on the initial broadcast, which is that Joshua, he did look a little rusty to me. I'm sorry, but he did. That Jake is, you know, probably a little bit better than we suggested he might be. When I say we, I mean like the hardcore fight community, the fight fans, the people who work in the industry to a degree. Sometimes there is a suggestion that he can't do anything. And I would be like, well, that's a little much. He can do stuff. I mean, it's limited what he can do. It's very limited what he can do. But there is a little bit too much anger towards him sometimes, or just dismissiveness, maybe is a better way to put that. And I don't really co-sign on some of that. He's got some ability. He's not good. Listen to me very carefully. He's not good. But is he the caricature that he is sometimes made out to be in terms of his pure boxing skill? I think it goes a little overboard sometimes. But that isn't the reason why I wanted to make this video. What I wanted to make this video about is two things. One, after the fight was over, I got on social media and people were like hugely negative about the fight. And I did not think that the fight was good. In fact, I thought the fight was, like most Jake Paul fights, pretty bad, although him surviving kind of feeds into the story of him being perhaps a little bit better than we sometimes think, although I don't really co-sign on that. Let me make the point. The first point is, I think people are overreacting a little bit. A little bit. People were suggesting when I got on social media that this was like the biggest farce they'd ever seen in their life, and that this was, how could he fight like this, and this was a disaster, and you know, Joshua should have got him out there earlier. There is probably some evidence to suggest that Joshua, I don't think Joshua was carrying him in the sense of, hey, they coordinated this ahead of time. But was Joshua really stepping on the gas? No, I don't think he was really stepping on the gas. There were times I think he clearly pulled his...
He pointed out that Anthony Joshua did not fight at full intensity and deliberately pulled many of his punches. From Thomas's perspective, this was not a competitive boxing match, but a controlled situation where a top-level heavyweight showed restraint. Jake's performance did not demonstrate skill, growth, or tactical intelligence. Instead, Thomas argued that Jake looked overwhelmed for most of the fight, struggled to engage meaningfully, and failed to show any real intent to win. Lawrence Waukee approached the situation from a different angle but reached a similarly critical conclusion. He focused on the inherent danger of boxing itself. We explained that one mistake in the ring can end a fight instantly regardless of fame or preparation. From his point of view, Jake Paul stepping in with someone like Anthony Joshua was reckless.
Broke his jaw. We all know, we've seen the x-ray. There is a video of the x-ray that he showed us on his Instagram, so that was no AI. And it showed where where his jaw had to be reconstructed and, you know, wired, right? So he can't have any hard foods for a while. And again, I think Jake Paul is going to get respect for that, because it's one thing, because we all know about Jake. I think the problem with Jake was he was bullshitting us by giving us fights that we didn't want to see, for one, and for two, wasn't giving us fights most of the time of the people that could beat him. You know, he gave us Tommy Fury, and then Tommy Fury actually beat him, which, you know, whatever. But he did drop Tommy Fury with a left hook, so that was an impressive thing he did against the guy. Well, can't say the only guy now, because AJ fought him and knocked him out. But, you know, other than that, though, fighting Mike Tyson, Anderson Silva, which Anderson Silva showed that he is still very dangerous and very, very ready at 50 years old. You know what I mean? Like, what he did to Tyron Woodley was classic Anderson Silva. You know, he picked his shots. You know what I mean? He moved with grace. He moved with wisdom, and he knew exactly what to do. And again, he should have went over to boxing a long time ago, but Jake beat him. So that just made Jake's, you know, stock rise, right? In the sense of, hey.
O stressed that boxing is unforgiving and that mismatches do not become acceptable simply because they generate attention. He described the decision to take this fight as unnecessary and foolish, highlighting how easily the outcome could have been even worse. Despite the heavy criticism, there were some voices that acknowledged Jake Paul's willingness to take punishment and continue.
My own credibility, I've got to knock you out,
but I've got to try and knock you out where I'm not hurting you as much as what I could if I unleashed.
Yeah.
And with the punch you said that he landed, it's not his best punch,
It's
his
an arm
most
punch,
powerful
mate.
punch,
It's an
right?
arm punch.
Yep. And he's shattered his jaw in 2 places, right? So Anthony Joshua gets his 70 million, whatever it is. But I think he's sitting there thinking, thank God for that. Thank God on a human level, I've come out, all right, I've sort of, not reputation, but I haven't hurt him as bad as
Mate,
what I could have.
There should be an awful amount of people breathing a massive sigh of relief. Anybody that put that fight together, athletic commissions, like you
Well,
said.
it wasn't a fight.
No,
was
it wasn't at all. Like you said, it was a prize
Yes.
fight. It was an event. If Anthony damages him, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of stress to deal with. You know what I mean? So I'm sure he's bleeding the side of relief. The team that have put him in there, that have negotiated that for him, but the authorities that put that on and commissioned it as a proper boxing match, I've no doubt.
Does that go on his... Because
Yeah, it's a professional boxing.
do you know what? If I was Anthony Joshua, I would be saying I don't want that on my record.
Well, it
but
is,
but for the credibility of them putting the fight on, they would have said to him, "No, we've got to say this. It's been commissioned. It's going to be a proper fight." And I found it. I love my boxing, but I just find the whole thing really, really unedifying. You said about get followers. You mentioned Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is nowhere near his level of getting like a British title fight or whatever. Nowhere near. So it's basically he's like
beat Jake Paul.
Well, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, beat Jake Paul. But so
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that's 100. I stand by that, and I think Tommy would admit that. You know what I mean? To become a British champion is a very prestigious thing to do, and I think he would struggle to do that. In the UK.
But I think when I was reading,
Following the fight, it was reported that Jake was taken to the hospital and suffered a serious jaw injury. Some commentators viewed this as evidence of toughness. They argued that regardless of the performance, Jake showed courage by stepping into the ring with a fighter of Joshua's caliber. These reactions focused less on technique and more on resilience. However, even among those giving limited credit,
It's come a long way, so you want to give him credit for that. But on the other hand, you want to get in there with AJ. You want to talk about you're going to beat AJ up, and then you fight in a certain way. It's very hard for me to kind of give the right amount of credit and criticism here because the backstory is so inspiring, but the performance was not inspiring in some ways. I think for me now, I just want to see Jake Paul in a fucking competitive fight, and that's the problem with the direction he's been going in. Is he puts on big fights, but not competitive fights. Fighting Chavez Jr., that was an easy win. Nate Diaz, an easy win. Mike Tyson, an easy win. Anthony Joshua, not competitive for the opposite reason. He's completely not expected to win, and it wasn't competitive. He stacks the chips too heavily either way, and because of that, we never actually get to find out how good Jake is. And part of that, I think, is maybe deliberate, because then we never know, and the storyline can go anywhere. And while you don't know really how good he is, there's always another dream to sell, and it's almost genius level promoting. It really is. But for his own sake, you're getting into your late 20s now, your physical prime, you're only going to ever find out how good you really are by getting in there with people who are of the level that you claim you're at the right weight class. You are not a cruiserweight. You've got a layer of body fat on you. You can't be doing that in boxing. If you're a serious boxer, you don't get in there looking like Jake Paul looks. You look shredded, and that's why really he's a light heavyweight. But like, fuck it, if you want to be cruiserweight, be a cruiserweight. Regardless, just fight people who are now like ranked, and let's find out where the fuck he is. Because surely these money grab Tyson fight, the AJ fight, he's packed that bank chock full. And credit to him. Even if he has hustled people or whatever the fuck, credit to him. One of the best promoters in boxing history, actually. I really do believe that. Because even when fights seem ridiculous,
the praise stopped short of endorsing Jake as a legitimate professional boxer. The narrative was framed as bravery rather than ability. Taking damage and continuing is respected in boxing, but it is not enough on its own. Courage without competitiveness does not redefine a fighter's standing. While Jake's injury showed the physical cost of the decision, it also reinforced concerns about whether such fights should happen at all.